everybody. We're catching up on the Bitcoin conference. Must have been awesome. Just kidding. We'll talk about pieces of that along the way. You're in the green room here with DisrupTV. Here's my awesome co-host, Vala Afshar. We got our producer, Elle, here. We're going to do some reverse order introductions, see how everybody's doing. And, of course, I'm going to ask where you guys calling in from and what are you talking about today? So, Lewis, where are you calling in from? What are we talking about?
Lewis Smithingham, SVP of Innovation for Media.Monks. I am calling in from the Research Triangle in Raleigh, so in North Carolina. We're here to talk about the metaverse in general. I think what my specialty comes into is just looking at how we show up from a brand's perspective authentically.
Woo-hoo. All right, hot topic. Thank you for calling in. Sam, where are you calling from? What are you talking about today?
What's up, guys? Thank you for having me. I'm currently in Austin, Texas, although normally based in Las Vegas, Nevada. Today, I'm here to talk about similarly the metaverse and specifically fandom in the metaverse. I'm Chief Strategy Officer for NFT Stadium. We're creating fandom experiences with NFTs that are to be enjoyed in the metaverse and other digital forums.
You and I have to catch up. I'm in Las Vegas a lot, and
I'll send you some recommendations.
I've got NFT ticketing with a guy named Hunter. You might know, so we'll chat up. All right.
That's right.
Arthur, where are you dialing from? What are we going to talk about?
Hey, it's Arthur Phillip. I'm dialing in from Orlando, Florida. Great to be with everybody today, and excited to talk about the metaverse and the Web3 economy that's emerging, and how businesses can take advantage of it. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Publicis Sapient.
Woohoo! All right, looks like an action-packed show. Turn it back over to you, Elle.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on Twitter at DisrupTV Show. Send Ray, myself, our distinguished guests, your questions live using hashtag DisrupTV. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host. He's the CEO and founder of Constellation Research. He is the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Surviving and Thriving in a World of Digital Giants. Ray's a regular television business and technology news contributor for Fox Business, Yahoo Finance, CNBC, and Wall Street Journal. He's a global sought-after keynote speaker, and in my humble opinion, one of the top futurists to follow on Twitter at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm here with my co-host friend, Vala Afshar, the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce. He's also the author of The Pursuit of Social Business Excellence. I normally have the book with me. Executives around the world pay attention to every one of his inspirational, insightful tweets. And when he's not hosting, keynoting, or leading events at Salesforce, you can find him speaking on business TV outlets such as Bloomberg and posting insightful analyses on ZDNet. But, it's not about us. It's about our awesome co-hosts and awesome guests that are here. Who do we have today to kick it off?
Ray, it's a privilege for us. Our first guest is Arthur Phillip, Chief Growth Officer at Publicis Sapient. Arthur leads the global sales ecosystem, business development, and operations for Publicis Sapient, new and existing clients, partners, on clients across the entire group, and collaborates with teams across the organization to drive multidisciplinary expansion. Arthur has over 30 years of experience in technology and software services and has built and led and grown global teams at functions at HCL Technologies, Microsoft, HP, Oracle, Unisys, and IBM. Some companies I think most of our audience are familiar with.
I have no idea who they are. No.
Yeah. Most recently, Arthur was EVP Global Head of Sales Transformation and Marketing at HCL Technologies. You can follow Arthur on Twitter at Arthur Phillip, F-I-L-I-P. Welcome, Arthur, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thank you, Vala. Thank you, Ray. And thanks for getting my last name right there. Perfect. Great to be with you guys. It's been quite a while, Ray. I think last time we were on stage was right before the pandemic, and probably somewhere in the snowy mountains in Switzerland. But it's awesome to see you guys live.
Thank you so much.
It is amazing. And, the hot topic of the day is metaverse, right? We define it as a $20.7 trillion market by 2030. We're all talking about it. We're all defining it a little bit differently. It's all starting to come together. We're kind of at the middle of this definition phase, and we're just about to figure out what it's all going to be like. How do you guys define it? How does Publicis Sapient think about it? You're big in terms of shaping what that definition is about, but more importantly, like how you guys think about it and what does it mean for your clients?
Yeah, and first of all, what I'd say is you said 27 point, I think $3 trillion opportunity. I would actually urge people to take a look at the overall global GDP, right? 94 trillion today, growing to 110 next year. The reality is that the metaverse is going to have impact in all kinds of nuanced ways throughout the entire global economy. First of all, Publicis Sapient's a leading global company. We were born about 30 years ago at the outset of the internet era. We've helped thousands of companies really work through and build their overall digital business transformation footprint and evolve for the era that we're in today. And when I look at the metaverse, it's really a fundamental part and extension of everybody's digital business transformation. In many ways, it is all the different disparate technologies and foundational principles that people have been working on for 20, 30 years, starting to converge together. VR and AR have always been off in the distance as a potential and a future, but there have been so many advancements. And one thing I'll say is the pandemic itself, when you combine people that most of our lives were reduced during a 2-year period of time to a 2-dimensional arena. We sat at home. The only differentiation was your voice, what you were wearing that day, and what your background was. But we were all stripped of many of our social, opportunities, many of our interactions, many of the things we got to do outside of our homes. And that forced the technology to get even more integrated, to evolve, and actually changed a lot of behavior, right? It drove acceptance beyond gaming. We saw gaming as kind of the opportunity for the metaverse to evolve. But once people got into a sphere where their work, their life balance, their interaction with family members was all dedicated to online, their shopping, their interactions, really their livelihood, that started to put the metaverse into a second gear. And one way I describe it is it's really a collection of virtual shared space opportunities, and it's ambient computing coming together. From a Publicis Sapient perspective, we look at it a special way. We have something that we really espouse and bring to our clients, an accelerator we call speed. And first of all, we love speed because it's fast and it's nimble and it's agile. But for us, it's about building companies' capabilities and culture and foundations around strategy, around product, around experience, around engineering and data and AI. And if companies can embrace all 5 of those, you take a look at any one of those individually, but you start to bring all of them together, integrated. And now you've got an organization that's powerful, that's strong, that's nimble, that can really take digital to the next level and jump into the metaverse.
You work for a company that's a digital transformation trailblazer, a revered brand globally, and then you have an awesome title, growth officer. Like, who doesn't want to grow? So I suspect that you're pulled into or invited to by your clients through different lines of business to help them understand how they can grow leveraging the metaverse. But you must have naysayers. You must have people who think this is hype. Coca-Cola just launched a drink in the metaverse, and Nike and shoe brands have had their clothes in the metaverse, minting NFTs and this, that. And no matter where you look, it seems like every sector is trying to find their voice and the ability to brand in this digital economy. What do the top naysayers tell you? What are some of the challenges that you see when you're invited to meet with CEOs and boardrooms and have this discussion? Who are the ones that are trying to, deflate the enthusiasm about this reality that's again multi-trillion-dollar industry?
Wow. Yeah, we're definitely seeing like
I
a
wasn't
big
sure if it
shift
was
in what's happening
my connection.
in the metaverse. No, but you and I are both here. We're definitely in the metaverse. We're definitely in the metaverse.
Eventually, our show will have to go there, Ray. Just letting you know.
We definitely do. We definitely do. But the challenges, right? So we were having this conversation about, where the naysayers were, and a lot of folks were like, "It's not real. We're at the beginning. We don't know who the winners are. What's the standards? How do we get there?" But there are some good things that are happening, like universal screen description, right? The Pixar standard that actually is setting what AR, VR is going to do, right? And folks are like, well, is it just another channel? Should we do it like the way we used to do it? And that's another thing that we've got to figure out. Like, how do we, do we keep it a separate channel? Is it a metaverse team? Kind of like we're going to have a mobile team, like mobile development. So, but we've seen stuff like that. What are you seeing as well, Vala? Like when you're talking to clients or when you're hearing about metaverse, are there naysayers popping up as well?
I think interoperability is probably something that most people are not fully aware of in terms of who's defining the standards, how many metaverses will exist. Can my avatar be portable in terms of going to a Publicis Sapient metaverse event and then going to a Meta event or a Salesforce event? And so what's the tipping point, and how much are the enthusiasm around NFTs driving the topic? Most people are still concerned about, does this require physical hardware? Is it a glass? Is it something I have to wear in order to participate? So there's a lot of conversations, but the good news is that people are talking about it, and some trailblazers are actually more than talking about it; they're implementing.
These objections are real. And Arthur, what are you seeing on the rejection side in terms of what's happening as objections to the metaverse? Is it hype? Back to the original question there.
Yeah, hopefully you can see me. So I think one of the naysayers must have actually, hit
sabotaged your.
So I'm here in Florida, and my theory is the Bitcoin conference is using up so much electricity right now in Miami that it hit me pretty good. So listen, I think there are two kinds of naysayers. I mean, naturally, when you have a brand new technology or you're at the beginning of a hype cycle, you have the general public that gets excited for a bit, period of time. And we saw that over November and over the holidays. You saw really pop culture start to embrace the metaverse and crypto and, what's taking place. And then after a couple of weeks of, all of the attention around that, I think people started to turn a little bit negative. And, along with that, just in the real day-to-day action, you started to see some fluctuation and volatility when it comes to some of the NFT drops and some of the currencies, right? So that was one thing that took place. Secondly, within the community itself, there's a real massive amount of people today that are online, in Twitter, in Discord, with their avatars, with their personalities. They're out there conducting business. They're building the metaverse brick by brick. They're bringing Web3 and blockchain and DAOs together with NFTs and with the metaverse experience. And within that environment, they're starting to see corporations now, right, show up just like traditional corporations. And I think they're getting frustrated. It's kind of like if you remember 30 years ago at the outset of the internet, kind of the DARPA days, right? There was a whole community that said, hey, no corporations, no commerce. We don't want to see like the average citizen jump on this internet thing. And eventually, of course, the world took over and the internet became what it is. I don't think that's going to happen in the metaverse, but you definitely have a group of early trendsetters that have basically said, look, things are really in a futuristic way of communication and operation here. Corporations, you're going to have to adapt and adjust a little bit and actually get a little bit more hip to what's going on in the market if you actually want to be taken seriously and be authentic in this space.
It's a great point, right? And data portability, what Vala was talking about, the ability to actually move avatars into different worlds. Will we have closed worlds, open worlds? Those are questions people are asking. It's 1997. Is Ask Jeeves around? Oh, not yet. Hey, wait, is Google around? No. Is it going to be Internet Explorer or Netscape? And so the standards are being defined. The Web 3.0 technologies are there. We look at the metaverse by talking about interfaces, worlds, DAOs, blockchain, and what happens in the Web 3.0 world. What do I need to get started other than everyone's like, hey, I got got my NFT. That's pretty cool. Now what do we do with it? Like what are you helping clients do to get beyond that POC, for the year, just to say we got this cool thing up there and get serious about business?
Yeah, I think. Well, I'll tell you the first thing. The demand right now, the interest is massive, right? And it's not just the marketing department and the CMO's arena. It's all the way up to CEOs that are wondering, hey, what's going on? A lot of their point of view, and CFOs as well, comes from the fact that there's just a lot of understanding right now about what's going on in the whole fintech arena, in the blockchain arena, the opportunities with currency, with alternative and decentralized currencies, and what kind of strategy should you have. But product owners, service owners are looking at it and saying, hey, we've got to do something. We've got to establish our presence. We've got to get a brand out there. The first thing people are asking us about are, how do I educate my team, right? How do I start to build culture and capability? And for us, that's what speed is all about, helping companies have the culture and capability to succeed, not just one time in a one-shot effort or in some type of gimmicky way, but to build for the long term and for the future. Secondly, people are saying, what kind of use cases apply to my industry, my business, my geography, my specific customer set? So working through use cases, really getting in there, getting out of the whiteboard and kind of into the laboratory, and testing things out is really critical and important where we're helping clients right now. And, the third thing I'd say is we're stepping back and really helping people with their strategy. So what do they want to do today, 6 months from now, which is a lifetime away, 2 years from now? How do they have the infrastructure? How do they build experiences? How do they create long-term collaborative relationships with their client sets? And really use this as an opportunity to expand customer bases. That is one of the absolute, whether you're a believer or a non-believer, there is no doubt that loyalty, the opportunity to grow and to hit an entire new segment of the marketplace around the world has never been higher. And you can look at, I was down in Miami 2 days ago, and of course the Bitcoin conference is taking place there. I'll tell you what, you have people from every corner of the earth that transcended, into Miami, all parts of Asia, all parts of Africa, all parts of Latin America, and from countries that many corporations, have barely scratched the surface of doing business. And now it's all virtual and online, with tens and hundreds of millions of people that are transacting in a digital manner, that are buying NFTs, that are getting excited about the space, that are using augmented, think about Axie Infinity, right? Which is, that's one of the many different companies and platforms that came up, giving people in third, fourth, fifth world nations an opportunity to game and to actually earn tokens and income, just from participating in the Axie Infinity environment. Zed horse racing, right? Which everybody looked at and said, wow, that's crazy. All of a sudden, you now have people selling virtual horses for $600,000-$700,000 that are earning tens of thousands of dollars a day that didn't have any income by having a fractional share of a DAO and actually racing those horses. So you're seeing massive communities converge and spend large portions of their day here. Incredible.
Arthur, when you're talking to a CFO, and I'm assuming CFO is probably the persona that will have conversations with you about risk, compliance, security, privacy. What are some of the concerns? And it may not be the CFO, it may be CEO, as you said. How do you guide the discussion around risks associated with, digital wallets, crypto, DAOs, and frankly, an environment where we don't necessarily have compliance and regulatory guiding what we can and cannot do, especially if you're a public corporation?
Yeah, there are four, things that I think CFOs are really thinking about today. First of all, you have an extreme volatility risk, especially when you have various, depending on what the project or the effort might look like, depending on what the target audience might look like, whether you're going full-fledged metaverse into the NFT realm and trying to attract a client base, whether you're starting to think about decentralized cryptocurrencies, for example, could you use Bitcoin to do intercompany transfers rather than sending money to divisions by wire and through 18 different banks and incurring fees? So first of all, there are regulatory considerations. There are volatility considerations when you think about, are things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, pegged to a stable coin, and do they have, every day we see 5-10% up and down with, just that's on a conservative day with different currencies.
Sure.
But they will get stable. Every country is examining how to really convert their system now to a digital framework and to the blockchain itself. So volatility is one. Service level risk, when you're starting to engage as a brand with your clients is a critical consideration. Security, for sure. And, you've seen so many different security instances. Social engineering, where people have been duped out of their own keys, and they've had their accounts, whether it's Binance or OpenSea, completely wiped out. They've had their NFTs taken away from them. Horrific stories like that. You've seen different hacks of platforms. So there's absolutely going to be a phase where everybody's got to double and triple down on platform security. But there are platforms that are going to be here to stay. And then, look, the final thing I'll say is there's environmental concerns and risks, right? That's part of the reason we see Ethereum taking it seriously. And I applaud the community for, moving from the early phase platform and now starting to migrate to Ethereum 2, where, all of the, rightfully so, all of the attention they've gotten for, the amount of electricity they're burning to mint the blockchain, is starting to shift into a whole new realm.
Yeah, changing the way we do proof of stake. I mean, that's a huge issue.
Absolutely.
So
miners might not be
shift.
happy, but it's important.
Well, that's a huge issue. Hey, look, Arthur, thank you for being here. Arthur's the Chief Growth Officer at Publicis Sapient. More importantly, you can follow him at Twitter at ARTHURFILIP. We're going to have to catch up and meet you in the Metaverse. I'm just kidding. Taking one of your lines.
Seeing you guys soon.
Hey, thanks a lot. And it was really fun being on your webinars yesterday with your team. So, all right, take care. So thanks for being here. See you in the green room.
Yeah, it's incredible to see growth officers really thinking about this set of emerging technologies as a driver for growth. And our next guest, Sam Simmons, is the Chief Strategy Officer for NFT Stadiums, a fan first. I love that. I'm from Boston, so my whole life is going to 4 different pro teams all the time. A fan first NFT platform dedicated to bring fans closer to their favorite brands across sports, gaming, entertainment, music, and more. Prior to entering the Web3 space, Sam spent several years in media as president of PokerGo, where he won industry awards for content programming and digital marketing while leading a multi-channel distribution strategy across linear and streaming platforms. Sam is a Bored Ape Yacht Club holder. When we meet for barbecue, Sam's treating, and consults, advises, and invests in a variety of Web3 projects. You can follow his company at NFT Stadiums.io. Welcome, Sam, to DisrupTV.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. I will say, though, that I don't think free food is a part of the Bored Ape utility program, but I'll have to check on that.
I like that.
That's awesome. Hey, look, I always want to be welcome to the arena. I want my Genesis tokens, and I think that's kind of where the world is heading. But let's take a step back for the folks that are watching and that might not know what an NFT is. I'm sure it's going to be mainstream in about 3 months when my mom tells me she's bought an NFT. We're getting close to that point in time. But let's start with it. What is an NFT, and why is it so important beyond the consumer things that we've seen? Right? There's other things that people are doing with NFTs.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that if you were to ask 100 people that question, you'd probably get 100 different answers, which goes to show how confusing and I guess nebulous of a space this is now in the technology on the whole. I like to think of it as a digital asset whose ownership is authenticated through blockchain technology. And that could be a wide variety of things, everything from collectibles to artwork to gaming tokens and so on and so forth. But really, to me, the real power of this technology boils back to building connections. So I think of it as a mechanism for connectivity between not only brands, customers, brands and fans, but also between fans and fans, between customers and customers, and the capacity that has to build community and the benefits that generates to the ecosystem on the whole within a brand's consumer universe and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different use cases of this technology. I think that we're in a bit of a, you mentioned the Bored Ape stuff. I think we're in a bit of a weird time where a lot of the most public use cases that we often see in the mainstream around Justin Bieber paying, I want to say it was like $1 million+ for a Bored Ape. That's what people have in mind. But I think once you start to peel back the layers on the onion a little bit and really begin to understand the power that this technology has in disrupting the fandom experience, I think it goes to show exactly what all of this actually is and what it can be. And that's really what NFT Stadium is striving to do, is create an experience out of fandom that extends to the digital realm, i.e. the metaverse, to circle back to our conversation here, and do so in a way that is immersive and additive to the existing fandom experience in a way that's special and ultimately stands to reward the whole IP holder ecosystem.
Sam, I'm on the Red Sox advisory board. I work with the Boston Celtics. I work with the New England Patriots. So I'm in front of ownership and the senior leadership of all the pro teams in Boston. Help me. How do I guide these folks in terms of fan experience and NFTs? What are some cool experiences that I can share with them next time at a board meeting? So one, I can sound smart, and two, I can help them grow their fan base.
Absolutely, and I can guarantee that that's probably a conversation that they're already having.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's about steering the ship, I suppose, into the right harbor.
That's right.
So I think the example that I always go back to, and I apologize in advance for using this specific example. I just always do. I don't mean to rub salt in any wound, but let's say I'm a fan of Tom Brady. And
I love him.
I
still do.
I know he's become so likable in recent years, for better or worse. I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, so I hated the guy for a long time. I was at that game. Sorry, I don't want to get sidetracked, but it was the whole thing. That's a whole separate podcast. I'm not ready to rehash.
Moving to our next guest.
Yeah. Anyways.
We're just kidding.
Sidetrack. So if I'm a fan of Tom Brady, it is normal behavior to go into the team shop and buy a jersey of Tom Brady.
Sure.
Not so much. It certainly isn't as an investment mechanism. I'm not doing that to theoretically take this jersey and sell it for a higher dollar amount at some point down the road. It is a way for me to not only signify my passion tied to the team, the player, the sport, whatever it may be, not only signify that to others, but build connections with others. And it kind of plays back into what NFT Stadium is all about. We strive, so it was mentioned earlier around like the COVID pandemic and how that has accelerated to the nth degree this process of digital adoption, metaverse, and so on. Our premise is built around the absence of live events for that period of time. And I think we very quickly realized how intimate of an experience it is to be in a stadium watching a sporting event with tens, if not hundreds of thousands of fans that share that same passion as you. But A, before you get into that stadium, and B, when you leave that stadium, that experience is rather disconnected. It has a lifetime to it of 3, 4, whatever it is, hours that you spend at that arena. However, with NFTs, it stands to build connections not only between team and fan, but like I mentioned earlier, with fan and fan on an ongoing basis. So that's what we're trying to create experiences around, is creating, I guess, more immersive experiences in fandom in a digital way, leading up to not to replace the existing sort of in-person fandom experience, but be additive to in various ways. And again, I'm going to keep harping on it, but it's not only about, getting like you would want to amplify jersey sales. It's not about maximizing the people purchasing your tokens if I'm the team. It's about creating experiences between the fans to make that fandom experiences more enriching. And then in turn, creating sort of brand advocates, brand loyalists out of these fans, such that the entire ecosystem expands through network effects.
Great explanation.
Let's break down the type of digital assets that you'd see in an NFT, and then talk about how smart contracts bring you between the asset and the buyer. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, cool, NFT. And like, yeah, how do I own this thing? And what happens? And what are the rules behind it? And then we'll get back to a point about how the DAOs play a role in all that in the automation. But let's start there. All right, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to say I'm by no means a very techie person. It was my background is in media, specifically streaming media. So I've made my career on super serving passion audiences. In particular, my background's in poker, so that is how I translated into this and why I thought NFTs were so special in the fact that it creates that connectivity and allows people to really, in a deeper way, experience their passions. I think the critical aspect of the smart contract piece and how the tech plays into it is that verified ownership aspect.
Yeah.
And a lot of the utility that is unlocked and the experiences that are unlocked as such is around being able to say, hey, I own a piece of this, whatever this is, whether it be a team collectible, a project. It obviously that definition will vary drastically depending on the specific use case we're talking about here. But basically, the NFT as a token will be embedded within the smart contract and within the universe that the brand has built. In this case, you basically can go in and say, hey, by connecting my wallet, which holds this token, I am confirming in a sense that I'm a true fan of this team. And thus, by being a true fan, I am owed specific benefits that other people may not get to experience. And that can vary so drastically. I think that ultimately the best use cases have yet to be revealed. What I'm really excited for is a lot of the in-person elements to this and how sort of the digital pairs in with the physical. And I mentioned the additive benefits to the in-person experiences. But imagine being able to go to your favorite sports game and having a lounge dedicated to NFT holders only, where they get certain access, whether that be like experiences with meet and greets and getting to meet players, personalities, and so on and so forth. And then obviously too, I think there's a big play here in the geographies of all this and how that applies, where I mentioned earlier that I'm unfortunately an Atlanta Falcons fan and I'm based out of Las Vegas. So how I'm really left hung out to dry in a way from being able to actually go, although I wish I hadn't made that Super Bowl, being able to actually go experience my favorite team. But when you tie the metaverse into this and creating these digital experiences, no matter where you are in the world, it allows equal opportunity to experience that fandom in a very real and immersive way. So I think it's just fascinating to me how NFTs are unlocking opportunities to pair real world passions with digital identity across various mediums, channels, metaverse included.
But by the way, I used to travel with Tom Brady to away games, and for what it's worth, he's an incredibly nice guy.
That makes it worse, actually.
Yeah, no, I know. He was surrounded by sisters. I don't know, his upbringing, his parents. He's an incredibly nice guy. Anyway, for a different discussion. I think about going to games with traditional tickets. And if you have premium seating, maybe your ticket is bigger and fancier looking. You go to an NFL game, you see folks wearing it around their neck. And in the future, listening to you, it feels like if your digital wallet holds team NFTs and the team is aware that you're on premise, really your blue check mark in the future is the type of NFTs you hold in your wallet, and you may get backstage access. You may get to bid on in event artifacts like the last football that's thrown. You are exclusively invited to bid on that ball, gamify it. Some of that revenue goes to charity of the team's choice, but it's a purpose-led incremental revenue only available to folks that have NFTs of the team showing that they're true fans. Is this how we're going to see a new business model innovation in sports, where people's NFTs give them the street cred and the exclusivity to certain services that the average fan will not have accessible to them?
Yeah, I think in a sense that's right. I think there will be an element of exclusivity to it, of having the benefits of being a diehard fan, where you put your flag in the ground and say, I love and support this team such that I'm going to collect XYZ. I'm going to buy these NFT drops, and that will come with certain rewards, benefits, access, privileges, and so on, that those holders will be able to redeem on an ongoing basis. I think there's something to be said too about the inclusiveness of this as well. And I mentioned the geographical element of this, where everyone, no matter if they're local to the region where the events are taking place, but no matter where they are in the world, they'll be able to enjoy their passion in some capacity. I think too, that this ties in well. Should have lost my train of thought here. I lost that there, but no, I think you're right. I think that it's opening up a new medium for. Oh, I got it. So imagine. So I always think about the jersey example again, but imagine if you were to go to a sports team and say, what if you were able to, like you have a marketing list and you're able to access any fan who has ever purchased a Tom Brady jersey? Like, how valuable would that be to be able to serve offers to these people, to market to these people, to connect with these people in various ways, and put them through various experiences and touch points throughout your franchise's ecosystem? That's really what NFTs is to me. It's just an opportunity to give something the fans of value that they will reap ongoing benefits from through utility, while also allowing the team to in turn create a deeper connection with these individuals. And obviously that has a ton of applications across ticket sales, merchandise, various other things that it's turning what is today was very highly transactional and is part of a traditional marketing funnel, is turning that into a benefit to the users. Like it's flipping the script entirely on its head.
And it's expanding the landscape. I mean, how would the Falcons reach someone in Las Vegas if it wasn't through digital properties? Because if you go to your mall in Las Vegas trying to find a Falcons jersey, you're not going to find it. Maybe it's a large store and you will, but
it's not there.
It's not there.
I can promise
It's
you that.
not there. It's not there. It's not there.
And I suspect there are many Tom Brady fans outside of New England and Florida, folks that may have moved. Generally speaking, I think it's pretty exclusively East Coast. But this ability to expand the arena is should be hugely important for pro teams. Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah. So how do we get started? How do we mine a Genesis token? Like, what do people do to get there? Like, tell us more about the platform, what it does, and kind of how it works. So.
Yeah, so we're in the very early stages of all of this, but the best entry point right now, we do have our Genesis collection that launched, and the theory behind that is if you're a fan of this sport or activity, you're going to be a fan of this and a fan of that. It's there's a lot of cross-indexing across the various IP we're going to be bringing on board. We're very heavily focused right now in sports and gaming. So for sports fans looking to engage with various NFT programs, NFT Stadium is a great place to go for that. The Genesis token that we launched very recently will grant certain benefits on platform, reduced fees, early access to new mints, various private Discord groups and alpha channels, things like that. And then starting next week, actually, we're going to start rolling out with our first IP partners. And I can't give away too much information on that. It's in the gaming sector, let's just say. It's in a activity that I'm deeply passionate about. And it's to me, I spent NFT LA last week. I was out there talking to people about this concept, and everyone that I've spoken with has loved it. It's one that very immersive, and really the premise of it is in a very real way bringing people closer to the action of this gaming / sport activity that most people very aspirationally previously were watching from afar on television. So it's all very exciting. Now is a great time to get in. But even outside of just the NFT stadium ecosystem, I always tell people to, first off, do your own research. Second off, there's a plethora across Discords, across social media. There's plenty of ways to engage with the various communities in NFTs without necessarily needing to make the jump to get involved. But I'll even say further, once you are ready to make that jump to getting involved, there's a stat that was published recently. There's a misperception out there that NFTs cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Again, that goes back to the mainstream use cases of Bored Apes and whatnot that make for sexy headlines. But over half of NFTs are selling for less than $200. So especially when you drill down into the passion areas that are currently represented via NFTs, there's not a huge barrier to entry to getting involved. It really comes back to deciding what that passion is and finding ways to engage in that via NFTs, which ultimately NFT Stadium will be doing our best to advance that in various ways. But then it's about education and just realizing what this brings you and going beyond that next step, beyond the level of I'm buying JPEGs to I'm buying rich, deep utility. I'm buying a connection with what I love. I'm buying access to a community which shares that love through a like-minded sort of organization, I suppose, and then getting involved that way. So I think that's the big thing to me. I think it's a matter of activity, participation, and then education.
Sam, how do you reach the 16 to 18 kids that buy $400 Nike Air Jordans and authentic all-star jerseys and this, that, and the other. No problem. They save money. Their parents take them to the mall. They buy it. I speak out of experience with my 12-year-old.
That would never happen. That would never happen.
They don't have access to Ethereum, Coinbase, MetaMask. They're not crypto holders. They can't legally, I suppose. And even college students who may not, have the awareness in terms of how to transact in this new world. How do you get to the younger audience who are fanatic gamers and sports fans?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I wish I had the answer to that. I think we're all kind of trying to find that in real time. I do think that as that generation matures, I think that's actually the easy part, so to speak, where these are digitally native, I guess, children today, but eventually adults, not tomorrow, but in the future, where they're used to this behavior. They're used to assigning value to digital assets. They're used to the flow of purchasing this in a way that gives them clout. That
my son is buying digital skins on Fortnite every week. They're absolutely ready.
Exactly.
I just how to we got to somehow
and that must make you sick, because you mentioned
it does.
You mentioned interoperability earlier. Like, what if Fortnite shuts down? I'll tell you. I'm showing my hand a little bit here. I'm a Call of Duty Warzone guy.
Okay.
There we go.
But despite my industry expertise, I'm still buying stupid skins. So whatever it is, they're doing something right.
They're competitive. They want to win.
I know. I want to look cool for my friends.
That's right.
We are here with Sam Simmons, CSO of NFT Stadium. You can follow the company Twitter handle at NFT Stadium IO. And more importantly, we should catch up in Las Vegas. I'm here a lot, so
looking forward to that.
We love having you here. And of course, we got to catch you at the NFT conferences. What conferences are you going to in the next 4 months? Let's hit them all.
That's a great question. I think in the green room we talked about this. I feel like if I went to every conference, I'd never be home. Like, it's just like a world tour where you could just constantly be going to a different conference. I think the next one on my docket would be NFT NYC. So if anyone's there, give me a shout. And who knows? I make my schedule up week to week, so I may drop it and surprise you all at some point.
That's awesome.
All right, cool. Maybe we'll see a consensus CoinDesk. That'll be fun too. All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for being here, and happy Friday. We'll see you in the green room.
Thanks
for having me.
Thank you. Cheers. We don't know if we can get guests with Bitcoin hats. That's kind of cool. I got to get me some. All right. We've been talking basketball and football. This is our cleanup hitter spot where our last guest comes and hits a grand slam. And with that, we have
so I don't know if I'll be able to hit much of a grand slam.
Lewis Smithingham is Senior Vice President of Innovation at Media.Monks. A problem solver who identifies innovative digital opportunities, Lewis helps usher brands and partners into the future and creative and technical expertise at the forefront of digital transformation and virtualization. Lewis designed new protocols, tools, technologies to drive projects and success, keeping his finger on the pulse of technological advancements to simplify complex challenges. Lewis is a Lumiere Award winner, a Guinness World Record holder, Ray. It's a first. You've interviewed about 900 guests. I don't believe you have a Guinness World Record holder. And has been profiled in the New York Times and Campaign, and has been featured on CNBC, Business Insider, Ad Age, Fast Company, and many more major media publications. Lewis is sought after keynote speaker. You can follow him on Twitter at Smithingham. I welcome Lewis to DisrupTV. Okay, world record holder. You can't have us hang.
Yeah, let's start there. Let's forget everything else. What is the Guinness World Record here?
I'm actually in the book. Like, the book you had next to your bed that you bought at the Scholastic Book Fair in '95. Like,
the paperback one.
Yeah, so I'm in the book for world's first VR narrative series in 2017. I had a VR company before all this stuff. I think part of this hype cycle, somebody on the call earlier mentioned that, like, Metaverse is worth $80 trillion. And I do believe there's substantial value over time, but, like, I think it's super important we temper our expectations a bit. I remember when I started my VR startup, like, VR was going to be a $50 billion industry or zillion or something by 2022. And, like, I don't have a yacht yet, so I do actually. That's not true. I have yachts in virtual spaces, but not a physical yacht.
That's a pretty nice room behind you. That's a pretty extensive library, so you're doing okay.
He's got physical assets. Let's just remember
that's
that.
Part of the thing with this, I shout out to the fact that on this call we're not replicating the New York, San Francisco, LA paradigm. pretty much everybody is outside of those cities.
True.
And that's a big part of this
true.
metaverse thing. It doesn't matter where you are. It matters what you do and how you do it.
I love that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And when we talk about where that metaverse is headed, what's happening in the next role, I mean, how are you guys thinking about the metaverse? And we're going to ask every guest that only because we're coming at it for so many different angles. We're just at the beginning of the definition, and we haven't got to a definitive answer. So what is that for you guys right now?
I mean, so I have a bit of a contrarian view. I personally don't completely love the word metaverse. It's a bit sci-fi-ish. Like, I feel like I should have a hoverboard, and like we're all going to be in VR. And like, look, man, I'm a tech nerd. Like, I'll be the first person who gets an implant. Like, let's go. I'll get another Guinness for that. I think there's a guy in Norway with one already. The point is, but we have to acknowledge that there is this foundational shift going on within our society. When people are like, oh, this metaverse thing, it's all hype, my response or my clapback is usually like, what'd you think about Facebook in 2005? What'd you think about MySpace? And like, I remember, so my college in Santa Cruz is like the third or fourth school that got it. I have a very embarrassing Facebook page that tracks back all the way to there. But I remember it's just some small thing I'm going to find parties with, but it's huge. And I think what we have to agree is where value is being created again within our culture is foundational shifting. And value is two things. Value is financial value, and there's been a lot of talk on this call about money in the metaverse and virtual goods costing money. I live in a town where there's like Fortnite. I live in Raleigh, so not too far from here is Fortnite Row, where all the Fortnite millionaires live, because Epic Games is based out of here. And that's a game that's free but makes like $17 billion a year. Like, and so we have to agree that even in the most simplistic metaverse term, there's massive financial value.
Massive.
And even when you're talking, and obviously there's going to be purists who are like, well, that's not connected to change, so it's not metaverse. And okay, cool. We can have that conversation about the first 3 Black Flag records as well at another time. But anyway, the point is with this whole thing, like, value is changing financially. It's also changing culturally. And where we place meaning and where we place value from a culture, from a community as individuals is changing virtually. The vast majority of my social life is online. It's engaged. It's whether it's in 3-dimensional spaces or on Discords, it's in spaces that aren't IRL spaces. I think that term where people say like, oh, wasted time on your phone, screen time, it's wasted, blah, 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 blah. It's like, dude, you don't know what I'm doing, man. Like, this is how I connect. And that's not me dissing on IRL. Like, my favorite hobby, I'm a scuba diver. But I also spend most of my time like socializing and interacting in virtual spaces and virtual worlds. So when we acknowledge that, like, there is this foundational shift, and I think in a more grandiose way, Klaus Schwab talks about the 4th industrial revolution, which I would argue we are. Well, I saw a study the other day that said we're in the primordial phase. So we're in the like fish frog phase. Or whatever
I don't remember the second revolution or the third, but call me up,
Yeah, no, it's a whole
Are we in the
thing,
5th one? Let's just call the 5th one now.
We're in the 5th now. So the point is we're in the shift. And like at some point we'll be in the Cretaceous phase of this and there'll be dinosaurs. But like the point is something massive is happening in how value is created and how industry is created. And like obviously the pandemic played a part, but realistically all this is shifting, but none of it matters until it feels inevitable. It's all technology. Technology is cool, but like it doesn't matter until it feels like it's a part of your life, until it feels commonplace.
Sure.
And that's really where we are.
It makes total sense. And I think it was Sam who used the term, our previous guest, digital native. I'm a digital immigrant. I wasn't born mobile, social, in the cloud, gaming, but I have an 11, 15, 19-year-old. I remember just one generation. I remember when I was their age, the first time my parents brought a big screen TV, maybe a 40, 50-inch TV at home. And I was like, the most incredible thing in the world. And my 3 kids don't give a shit about television. I've got 75-inch TVs all across my home. They're never watching TV.
Yeah, this is a 65-inch LG, and I sit watching TikTok in front of it.
That's exactly.
Like, the other night, I'm watching like Silicon Valley on the couch, with the TV off on my phone. What?
That is my house. I think I'm the only old fart that's still watching TV. And even then, I could say I'm probably spending more time on the screen, mobile screens. So that's just one generation shift.
Huge.
So, and our previous guest talked about more access, geographic access with things like Metaverse, where you don't have to be localized to be a fan or a loyal advocate of a brand. What are your thoughts about when we talk about Metaverse and creator economy with Web3 and all of these new technologies? Are we going to be more diverse, more welcoming, more inclusive world as a result of this?
That's a super tough thing. Like, my problem with a lot of these spaces is I'm seeing like hegemony just replicate itself right over again. I'm a New York refugee to some degree, where I left New York 6 months ago. New York was supposed to be like the most connected city in the world. Something like a third of people don't have broadband. And
or driver's licenses, but keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a driver's license either, so like, fair enough. But like, man, there's no roads that you don't need a driver's license in Fortnite. Anyway, the point is, like, a third of people in New York City don't have access to the internet. And when you say broadband, like, we're talking about the government's definition of broadband, which, like, that's not broadband, man. Like, no. I think they define it as like 20 megs, which is nah, dude. No, I can't even play at the lowest settings on that. And so the point is like, we are never going to get diversity, inclusivity, if we don't start thinking about this as a form of access. Like, you look at Estonia does this really, really well.
Yeah, the best.
Yeah.
The best.
It's like access to internet is a basic human right there.
Absolutely.
And it sounds grandiose and ridiculous to say that like access to internet is as important as access to water. But access to internet in this day and age means access to capital, access to the ability to work, access to the ability to get paid ridiculously high rates to do crazy stuff like build worlds in Roblox or mint NFTs. All that sort of stuff does not happen if you don't have access to that. And I think like there's really, really fascinating, meaningful, interesting stuff that's happening with brands and with telecoms where they're reaching out and they're looking at building that stuff. But again, my biggest fear right now is straight up lack of access and lack of the ability. But what's great about these spaces, somebody said this earlier, and we were talking to our new actually head of recruiting and head of diversity, who was talking about, maybe instead of looking at what people's LinkedIn pages are, we start looking at what their Roblox resumes are like and how they show up in Discord and all that sort of stuff, where people show up not based upon what private high school they went to, but based upon what they do and what they make. And that's something that like is super, super interesting and meaningful for me.
I love that.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see a lot of that.
Their digital presence, plus, as Ray says, digital exhaust, those unintended consequences of things they leave behind, which reveal their character, cultural fit, all of that. I love
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, and we're also seeing that. I mean, we have examples when we think about 43 use cases of the metaverse. One of them is recruiting, right? Recruiting can change. If we want to. I get some interesting feedback yesterday on my LinkedIn post, like, what do you mean? They're going to track us with all that data? But no, we could do non-biased recruiting, right? I mean, I can't, right now, I could tell from your accent kind of where you were based in the country. I can tell by the words you choose. I can tell by skin color. I make those assumptions, right? And there's, it's bias I'm not thinking about, right? I mean, it's unconscious bias that could happen in the interview. My avatar interviews your avatar. Oh, that's gonna be a different story, right? I put you on a training run. That's gonna be a different story. And we can make that happen if we want to. The technology is there for good or for bad. And that takes us to the conversation point about ethical implications, right? I mean, what can we do to take out bad actors, do it the right way this time? We say this every time we have new technology. Can we do it better? Is it going to happen in the right way?
And just know my avatar will not have any gray hairs and the teeth are white and straight. so I'm hoping for some
my avatar. My avatar has big enough hair, and so like
you have great hair. I wouldn't touch that. Are you kidding me?
It's my physical attribute. I mean, so like this is a tough one. Like, look, I'm a cis white presenting dude, and so like I don't get harassed in these spaces, and I agree. Like technology inherently creates a space where the most toxic and the most sort of trolly people. Look, man, I was playing very inappropriate games on my TI-85 in algebra, which is the graphing calculator. Like you give someone technology and they will immediately do something bad with it, generally speaking. And it's super, super hard. I think the more voices we get in these spaces, the more we're able to actually bring people directly in. I think we do get to an interesting space where self-policing sort of occurs. I think the indelibility of the virtual space inherently creates a thing where people do check themselves a little bit better. But at the same time, it's going to be problematic. It's not going to be easy to get rid of trolls. I'm a person that, like, I grew up going to a bunch of punk venues where we police toxic behaviors really, really well.
Oh yeah.
Out. And there are communities here that are gathering together to police these spaces and to create really interesting new sets of values. I think the thing that's great is, like, once it's on chain, you can't hide. Like, that's indelible. And so that stuff will cause people to check themselves more, and you'll inevitably get to a place where within interoperability, you have the same register you have that the airlines have, where people who are jerks to people get kicked off the planes.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm still, yeah.
I kind of look forward to it. I kind of look forward to that because I got to tell you, this is, I'm very active on Twitter, and I have to say the anonymous accounts are the ones that have no check system.
No, there's nothing.
They're loud. They're uninformed most of the time, and they're obnoxious. And as soon as you put your name and your company, it's a different person. And so they have a license to just create nonsense. And so anonymity to me on social platforms is a big issue.
Absolutely. And it creates a space as well. Like, we have to think about permanence here. So, like, when we're talking about virtual worlds and stuff, I've had brands say, okay, should I buy space? Yeah. And, that's permanent if you buy it. You're there.
Yeah.
Like, what happens if your neighbor ends up being somebody really, really horrible and really, really sketchy? I grew up out in East County, San Diego as a kid, and there was my mom was a knitter. And it's a weird side story. And the single greatest wool store in the world, she used to go to all the time. And Airy Nations opened up a compound down the street. She stopped going to that wool store.
Wow.
And so that's what brands have to think about when they're building in these spaces, is the permanence that you're doing. And all this ultimately comes back to, like, everything we've talked about today comes back to authenticity. Yeah. Creating with meaning, creating with value, providing something.
So true. So true.
Providing,
love the
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say I love the Mountain Empire, but keep going. So you're talking.
I mean, I think the thing with all this stuff is when brands go into this space, and honestly, not just brands, anyone, you need to think about what you're providing to these communities,
exactly.
What value you're creating. I think this is like a pre-Web 2 callback, but my opinion is the single greatest branded thing ever. There's a game called Chex Quest, came out in the 90s. By General Mills, Chex cereal. And what Chex cereal did, so this is the era of Doom 2. Like, Doom was the biggest thing in the world, right? And every 10-year-old wanted to play, but it was a little too gory. I wasn't allowed to play. Like, I wanted so badly to play Doom. And Chex,
the Quest.
I wish I'd been in this meeting. Chex licensed the engine to Doom and reskinned Doom completely. And it's now like a serial character shooting milk at boogers. And put
Chex Quest.
Yeah, dude, look it up. It's the coolest thing in the world. And
it is Chex Quest. I remember this. Yeah. It's a non-violent first-person shooter. I was like, what is a non-violent first-person shooter? It's milk. I got milk guns.
Here's the thing, man. They put 200,000 CD-ROMs in cereal boxes. It's the era of CD-ROMs. That corresponded to
more than you've got mail.
Yeah, that corresponded to a 300,000% increase in the sale of Chex cereal.
Unbelievable.
The CD-ROM costs more than the cereal. No, I'm just kidding.
No, dude, but here's the thing, man. If showed up, I want to do video games. I'm going to do something that people actually wanted. And every 10-year-old in the world, their mind was blown because now they can play Doom. And so when you're going to these virtual spaces, don't think about how I'm going to replicate this weird thing. Think about how I can provide an experience, how I can create a story, how I can get people to connect back, how we can do different things for people and provide value, and you get to really magical, meaningful stuff. And to your point about ethics, the more value you bring and the more honest you are, the trolls go away.
True.
Like
They do.
they won't show up if somebody's being meaningful. But if you're a poser and you show up, Steve Buscemi with a skateboard board over your shoulder, you're going to get kicked out, and people are going to come down on you. And so the trick is to create value and to build community.
Meaningful
advice.
and magical. We'll
Great
state
advice.
there. Louis Smithingham, Director of Creative Solutions at Media.Monks. And of
There you
course,
go.
you can follow him at Smithingham, and we'll catch up with you in the RTP area at some point. So, hey, thanks
Thank
a lot
you,
for being
Louis.
here.
Terrific
Yeah.
advice. Thank you, sir. Wow.
Woohoo.
We have a Guinness World Record holder on our show. it took
You never
850
know what to
guests.
expect.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And in the VR space, talk about
Yes.
an unbelievable
VR
early
series.
pioneer.
Unbelievable.
Okay, so obviously a metaverse show. All three of our guests talked to, I don't know, I'm not sure if NFTs are driving metaverse or metaverse is driving the NFTs, but the fact of the matter is every company needs to have these emerging technologies on their radar. Ray, your summary of the aha moments from our three guests.
I thought we stopped doing these. Darn it.
No, your summaries are so great. I'm not going to stop and asking.
So we're at a point where we call this the great refactoring. You've heard me talk about it, where we work, when we work, how we work, even why we work has changed. Mission and purpose are taking a different meaning in brands and corporations in terms of how they view things. And, the metaverse economy and the metaverse technologies that are behind here are really one of the fundamental technologies. We're in the middle of that shift, and we saw it from three different viewpoints, right? Arthur, who's really helping organizations figure out how to get themselves started. It's back like in the days of the 90s again, where we're trying to get into the internet, like the 2000s when we're trying to get into mobile. It's the same feel, but we all know how to do this better. And you could see that and sense that from Arthur, right? And what's going on with the conversation with Sam was really about, this whole notion of bringing these worlds that were in the gaming world into other areas, right? And we're bringing fan experience to the next level. We're improving participation. And we started talking about that inclusion piece really with Louis. And what's interesting about what's happening with inclusion and how we're actually, figuring out how to create these new opportunities is that we will have a point where when, you and I have met Vint Cerf, right? And we've had those conversations, right? And the whole point of the internet, the point was to connect everybody. Well, I think the metaverse is going to do that at a scale we never dreamed of. It will blow Vint Cerf's mind, even though that's a really, really, really big mind. And that's all that's coming together, right? All those things are there. The problem is, and we come back to this in every piece of this conversation and future conversations, is that humans are humans. And regardless of the technology, there's always going to be good people and there's going to be bad people. And that good versus evil, it's up to us to figure out how to harness the power of good, right? How to bring things in a way that, allow a diverse set of voices, but doesn't offer disinformation. Allow us to have freedom of speech without creating hate, right? And it's those balances that we have to get good at. And the problem is in the Web 2.0 world, we were triggered. We were triggered by, dog whistles everywhere to get people active and emotional, and we lost the ability to think in logic. And I hope we come back to the point where we can come back and understand there's a spectrum of outcomes. Here's the spectrums we want to play with, and what are the ones that, tie back to your brand, your value, and your mission, so that when we engage and create new immersive experiences, we reflect those inside of ourselves as individuals and what's happening in enterprise and organizations. Don't do this to me again. Just kidding. I have no idea what I'm talking about, man.
I need to record you so I can just write an article by just
We need transcription.
transcribing your summaries. We definitely need transcription. But these emerging technologies need a Vint Cerf. They need a TCP.
We need a Vint Cerf
protocol inventor to get the internet on a tipping point. They need a Sir Tim Berners-Lee and HTTPS and the web. The 80s and 90s had these pioneers that helped drive standards and interoperability. Yes. Who is the Vint Cerf of the metaverse today? I can't name that person.
Val, it's really up to us. Remember we walked in this boardroom once and we sat there and we're the grown-ups, and we're like, holy crap, that's us. What do we do? This is a little scary. Yeah. So that's where we are.
Those are big shoes.
Those are very, very big shoes. But who do we have coming up? We got episode number 270. Go
275. A nice milestone number. We have Srijit Mirsha, Chief Innovation Officer, Head Group Services at Aditya Birla Management Corporation.
Oh, yeah. Big company in India.
Big company. We have Dustin Haesler, Chief Innovation Officer of eRepublic. And we have Susan Brady, not a relative of Tom, CEO of the Simmons University Institute for Inclusive Leadership, and author of Arrive.
Oh, yes.
and Thrive.
Really, really good
Those
book.
are our 3 extraordinary guests next week. Ray, my good friend, if it's Friday, it's Disrupt TV. Thank you for all of you watching, and please continue to recommend guests for the show. We're more than a third through the year. We're several months booked, but if you can recommend guests for the show, the second half of 2022, we can get your guests on our show. So thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next Friday. Bye.